The following program deals with a controversial subject. The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation. Viewers are invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
This is your captain speaking. We are beginning our descent into madness.
Open your mind.
And we are back to another edition of West of the Rockies. I'm Frank. Thank you guys for sticking around. I know it's late for some of you, but we got another, if you can believe it, another exciting show.
Yeah, all within like 3 hours of each other.
It's been a crazy day. Genevieve, how you doing?
I'm doing quite all right. How are you tonight?
I'm recovering from that last interview that we did. It was amazing. And right now, we have another amazing guest that, Genevieve, if you will be so kind to introduce, the floor is all yours.
All right, so Lynn Campbell had been a Scientologist for quite a number of years, having been introduced to Scientology by her aunt at quite a young age. She was given a book and, Lynn told us she was into fairy tales, so that's how she started reading her first book. She was actually part of the Sea Organization, for those who don't know, for 9 months, and was one of the highest ranking auditors there, working very closely with L. Ron Hubbard himself for a period of time. So, she was around the time when Hubbard was still in charge and was there to witness that transition between Hubbard's and David Miscavige's ruling. Lynn has deep inside knowledge of how Scientology operates and is here to give us, the lowdown and a true insight into this quite extraordinary world. And honestly, on top of that all, she is one of the nicest, sweetest, calmest persons I've ever met. So I'm truly honored to be able to welcome Lynn Campbell into the show.
And due to some recording glitches, we lost the first few minutes of our interview, but luckily, most of it was recorded, and now we present it to you for your listening pleasure. So grab a drink, grab a snack, sit back, and enjoy this amazing interview with former Scientologist turned activist Lynn Campbell.
With his family, and I was just, it was just the most wonderful thing, I thought, to see L. Ron Hubbard in person. So, yeah, that was when I first saw him. And then after that, there was during the move between the ship and the land base, we had an interim place where we were that was Daytona Beach, Florida. And at that time, he was doing a Scientology research project. And he picked some auditors to do this research auditing for him, and he picked 7 auditors, and I was one of the ones that he picked.
Okay. And real quick, for the people joining us, we're talking to Lynn Campbell, former Scientologist, former Sea Org member, and current activist. It's a fascinating interview. We're going over how she was introduced to Scientology, how she joined Scientology, and how eventually she got to meet L. Ron Hubbard. Now, when you were in this boat, L. Ron Hubbard is such a strange figure. Was he... how do Scientologists view him when he was still alive? Was it something like a messiah or a spiritual leader, a guru? What was the sentiment in regards to L. Ron Hubbard for Scientologists?
They practically worship the man. I think you have to be a little bit removed from where he actually is to put him up on a pedestal, because the closer you are to him, the more you realize he's fallible. But most Scientologists don't get that close, and so they practically worship him. They think he knows everything about everything, and that some people, even after they leave the church, still have this idea.
Wow. Now, how long were you in Sea Org for?
The whole experience lasted just about a year.
Okay.
Just about.
And what were some of your duties while you were a member of the Sea Org?
Well, I was mostly auditing. It was my job to get to be as high in the on the auditing side of the so-called bridge to total freedom as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are at FLAG, the idea is to get to be a perfect auditor. And so you just work on that day in and day out.
And I'd like to know, because obviously a big turning point in this organization was the introduction of David Miscavige, and what was he changing so much, and what was it that people didn't like about his methods and his current methods?
Well, the thing that I noticed since I was an auditor
Mm-hmm.
was that he was actually changing the technology. He was changing basic definitions of things, and people would get all up in arms about that and then go to the qualifications division, and if they were like me, they would get talked out of it and go back to business as usual.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, then, there was no going back to business as usual if you're going to change basic definitions. So that was a big sea change.
Now, how long after you were in Sea Org did L. Ron Hubbard pass away?
It was about 10 or 11 years after that.
And up until this point, did Scientology still make sense to you? You say that here and there certain things would ring the alarm for you, and then you would try to rationalize it, but for most of this time, were you happy being there? Did you feel like you were doing something good for the planet?
Yes, I thought I was, because my pre-clears, or the people that I was auditing,
Mm-hmm.
would tell me that it was helping them. And so I would spend as much time in my auditing room as possible, because there things made sense. If I spent too much time outside in the other parts of the organization, things didn't make sense.
No, I get
and that
you.
was uncomfortable for me. I wanted to believe it was good, so I just stayed in there, and I was in a bubble most of the time that I was there, and it was happy. I was
Right.
helping people.
And while you were there, did you have family who were also members of Scientology?
Well, my mother and my aunt were still in
Mm-hmm.
until they passed away, a few years ago. My aunt died earlier, and then my mother died, about 12, 13 years ago. And so I didn't have anybody who was deeply in. My
Mm-hmm.
sister had done a few things early, but she had left years before that, and she was pursuing other, work and things like that, so she was not in. And so I didn't have the burden of disconnection like some people have, because my folks were already gone.
I see. Real quick, why don't you tell people what is disconnection?
Disconnection is when you have to not talk to people who are suppressive people.
Mm-hmm.
Suppressive people are the ones who have woken up and they're not in agreement anymore with some of the things in Scientology, to the point where they have to be isolated so that they don't get other people
Mm-hmm.
disaffected. So that's the logic behind disconnection from the church's point of view. But it's very hard on families when somebody is, like Sarah Goldberg in the film,
Mm-hmm.
when she actually had to choose between her son and her daughter.
Right.
And that just tears families apart.
No, it's horrible. It really is. It's I can't put into words how horrible some of these stories are. Another question here in the chat room real quick. Lynn, the question is, if you can just ask why. So why did you believe in this, and what is there to gain by believing in Scientology?
Well, that goes back to how they get people in the first place.
Okay.
The first thing they'll ask you once they've made contact is, what's ruining your life?
Mm.
And whatever you say is ruining your life, their answer is, Scientology can handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to believe that whatever is ruining your life can be handled.
Wow.
And so you go for a long, long time going on hoping that this thing is going to get handled. My ruin was I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I saw what my aunt could do, she was an auditor too, and she helped people.
Yeah.
And when I saw what she could do, I said, oh, that's what I want to be when I grow up.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
that and I was getting that. So that's why I stayed in so long.
I guess in summary, and I hear this from a lot of people, from all standings in life, Scientology, what it offers is to fulfill your dreams in exchange for your time and money. And essentially as much time and money as you can give. But what they offer is fulfillment of everything you've ever wanted, correct?
That's what they say they're going to do for you.
Yeah. And honestly, if that's what's put out in front of you, that's what's given to you on a platter, I can understand why people find it attractive.
Yes,
That's what people want in life.
Mm-hmm. And it's whatever you say you want.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting somewhere near that, that's why you stay in.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting it, but you're maybe hoping to still get it, you'll stay in.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the hope. Always.
Mm-hmm.
And when did Scientology, because more or less is modern day Scientology, if I may use the term, but when did Scientology become so infatuated with celebrity endorsements, if you will?
Well, that was one thing that L. Ron Hubbard had as his game plan to get Scientology broadly disseminated.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted celebrity endorsements. And so he established the Celebrity Center with Yvonne Jench. She was Yvonne Gillum back then, but then she became Yvonne Jench when she married Heber, who's the president of the church, or was. And she established the Celebrity Center. And she was a very charismatic person, and she had the ability to just charm people. Mm-hmm. And she's located in Hollywood, and she maybe had a few connections. I'm not sure exactly how she did it.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who worked very closely with her to establish the place, and that's what they would do. They would get into, I guess they would schmooze people in Hollywood, industry people. And aspiring actors, of course, that's what's ruining their lives, that they couldn't make it as actors. Oh, well, Scientology can handle that. So that, they ended up being a place where aspiring actors would go so that they could rub elbows with industry people in Hollywood.
Wow. So it was all planned to function in this way, pretty much.
Yes.
Now, we obviously know about Tom Cruise and John Travolta, they're world-famous actors, Scientology members. And it seems, whenever they have the opportunity, they have nothing but these great things to say about Scientology. Is it safe to say that there are two sides to the Scientology coin? The side that, somebody coming into it will see, and they'll have to go through all these steps and buy all these books and climb up this, what do they call it? The bridge, or
The bridge to total freedom.
the bridge to total freedom. And then there's the other side that, say, Tom Cruise or John Travolta sees, which is, this side of just, benefits after benefits after benefits of being a Scientologist. Is that fair to say?
Yes, there's a double standard. Let's say that.
Okay. And I guess it's really interesting that a church will do this, which, I'm not going to get into all the, I know a lot of people have opinions as far as organized religion, and they're entitled to that, and there's very valid arguments to it. But Scientology that claims to try and help people and do this, that is a bit strange, right? That depending on your financial situation, I guess you can say, that will determine what experience you have as a member of Scientology.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't figure it out for a long time, but then I finally realized all these people that are going really, really fast up the bridge to total freedom, well, they've got money. They put down a bunch of money, and so they have to be made to win so that they keep giving money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's jump to, when L. Ron Hubbard passed away. That was in 1986?
Yes.
1986. L. Ron Hubbard passes away, and this young guy, David Miscavige, did he just appear out of nowhere, or had he been a prominent figure in Scientology? I mean, did you know about him, while L. Ron Hubbard was still alive? Was he L. Ron Hubbard's favorite or something like that?
I had never heard of him.
Prior
Never seen
to...
or heard of him before.
Oh.
Prior to the time when he walked out on the stage and gave that explanation about why L. Ron Hubbard wasn't around anymore. That was the first time I ever saw him or heard of him.
When L. Ron Hubbard passed away, was there a memo that got passed around to all the Scientology centers? Did everybody hear about it when it happened? Or was that the first time that people knew that L. Ron Hubbard had died?
That was the formal, official announcement. And not much else was said about it. Because we were supposed to believe that he was somewhere else operating without a body, but that we were supposed to keep going and, keep the show on the road, with how the saying went. And that was what we were supposed to do, and that's what Ron would want. So we were supposed to keep the show on the road.
Now, what with sorry, and I'm trying to. We just got this strange tweet, and it's by an account, and this is real. This show is live. This is in real time. We just got a really strange tweet by @EthicsOfFreedom. It says it's a picture of, I believe half of the picture is David Miscavige and the other half is Tom Cruise, and the tweet says, "Actors, your favorite website to get cast for Scientology commercials is #GoingClear at WoTR Radio. Great show. Please, more on actor recruitment."
Actor recruitment? I'm not sure.
We have to go to break really quick, but can we talk about that when we come back, Lynn? If you happen to know anything about how they get these actors? I know we kind of touched on it briefly. As we said, they seem to get all the perks while, everybody else has to work and spend a ton of money to climb up this ladder. But Lynn, is it okay if we take a break, and when we come back, if you have any knowledge as to how they get these actors in, it would be interesting to discuss that.
And obviously our show, West of the Rockies, is your favorite website to get cast for a Scientology commercial.
That's what we do in our spare time. Sorry, Lynn. This was all a prank.
I think someone did not read our posts and articles correctly, but we're happy with the promotion.
I'm glad that they're tuning in. But Lynn, if that's okay with you, just hang on the line. We're gonna play one or two songs, and then we're gonna come back. So if you'd be so kind, can I just have you hold on the line for a few minutes?
Yes,
Okay, great. So we're going to come back to Lynn here in just a few. This is West of the Rockies. I'm Frank. Genevieve's here. I'm here. Lynn Campbell, former Scientologist, former Sea Org member, and current activist against Scientology, is our guest tonight. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. I hope everybody's having a good time. This is a very, very fascinating interview. So stick around. We could probably keep this conversation going all night long. So here's Mary Jane Girls with All Night Long. West of the Rockies, Independent FM. Here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Jorge Diaz of Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones, and you're listening to West of the Rockies with Frank. This portion of the show is sponsored by Haunted Orange County, your premier source for all things haunted in and around OC. From haunted history ghost walks to ghost group hunting expeditions at some of SoCal's most haunted destinations. Make your fall plans early and book an upcoming tour or investigation today. Visit hauntedoc.com.
Open your mind.
All right, we are back to the second hour West of the Rockies as our good buddy Dave Navarro sang there. Shout out to Dave. Great guy. Love the guy. And Jorge Diaz, Paranormal Activity. This segment brought to you by Hunter Orange County. Shout out to our good buddy Ernie Alonso. Check out hunterorangecounty.com.
New event coming up.
New event.
Crazy event coming up.
Face your fears with none other than Chad Lindbergh of Fast and the Furious, Supernatural, I Spit on Your Grave fame. He's going to be there. If you're going to be in the Southern California area, definitely check it out. Grab your tickets. Yeah, do it.
Google it or check it out on hauntedoc.com, I believe.
That's
anyway,
right.
Back to Lynn Campbell. We are here live with everyone on West of the Rockies.
Lynn, can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. Thank you for staying here with us. Now, we got a couple of other tweets from this account, Ethics of Freedom. You can find them at Ethics to Freedom. They want to know about how the Church of Scientology, how they recruit actors, and they tweeted us a link to, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, Lynn, if that's okay. There is a petition to our President Barack Obama to revoke Scientology's tax-exempt status, and we're going to get into that in a few minutes. But why don't you tell us a little bit about, were you ever around, or did you ever see or hear about actors that were being recruited to Scientology?
Well, I did do a few courses at the Celebrity Center, and to people who are not already actors, they recruit you at just the same way as they recruit everybody else. If you say, when they ask you what's ruining your life, and you say, I want to break into Hollywood, I want to be famous, they say, well, Scientology can handle that. They'll tell you anything that you want. They'll tell you can get it through Scientology. Now, whether they actually deliver that on that or not, I do not know.
From what I've heard, there's a lot of people that come to LA to try and jumpstart their acting career or their musical career or what have you. But in the case of actors, it seems that from what I've read, they'll answer, to a casting call, and they'll show up, and it turns out that it's a casting call for a Scientology video. And in the process, they get presented with all this information, and as it was the case with one young man, and I believe that you had the pleasure of meeting him, Stephen Mango. I remember watching a video where he talks about his experiences. The way that he was pulled into Scientology was that he was told that Scientology could help him,
achieve his goals.
To be an actor.
Star,
that they had a lot of actors, and obviously Tom Cruise and John Travolta and all these,
Will Smith,
A-list celebrities, and it's almost scary how they try to reel people in.
Yes, it is. That's what they do. I mean, that's the whole purpose of recruiting celebrities, is so that they can get a face to be their poster child, so that other people will follow and maybe join just because this person is in Scientology.
Now, while you were a member of Scientology, did you ever visit the Celebrity Center, which is located in Hollywood? I mean, not too far from the I guess Scientology headquarters, the big blue building.
Yes, I went there several times, and I did a few courses there until they changed their policy. They changed the policy to say that you can't do courses at Celebrity Center unless you're actually a celebrity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that meant that anybody who just wanted to do a course or two couldn't go anymore. But by that time, I was not doing courses anymore.
And you know, I had a good buddy of mine who used to have an apartment right, across the little street there from the Scientology Celebrity Center, and he would tell me about every so often at night they would have these very extravagant affairs. I mean, obviously he wasn't inside, but his apartment was literally just a few feet away. It seems like they definitely make everything possible to have their celebrities feel at home. Did you ever attend any of these events that they had at the Celebrity Center?
No. Years ago, there was one where they were going after politicians and governors. They wanted governors, especially black governors. Johnny Ford, I think he was a governor of one of the southern states, and so they had all the black Scientologists that they could muster to have a reception for these governors.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to that, and so that was one of the Celebrity Center events that I did go to.
That is really interesting, and actually fits with the next couple of comments I'm seeing in the chat room real quick here. Professor Madness is asking, is there a racial stereotype in Scientology? And Jennifer Wilcott says, oh, good question. I mean, mostly you only see white people in terms of the non-rich. What can you tell me about that? I hate to bring a racial issue here, but is there some kind of racial divide of sorts within the church?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
They'll say that there isn't. They'll say things like, oh, a Thetan doesn't have a color. We are not prejudiced because Thetans don't have colors. But L. Ron Hubbard himself was a racist. He put out a policy called A Message to Colored People.
Wow.
And this was long after we were colored people. This was like in pre-1950s, we were colored, but after that we were Negroes, and then after that we were black, and then after that we were African American. Well, he never made the adjustment. We were all still colored people.
That is literally outrageous. I cannot believe that. I don't even know where to go after this.
I can't say L. Ron Hubbard was a very modern type of person.
True.
in certain ways.
True.
So,
I guess it boggles my mind.
And you remember he wrote this stuff.
I know.
Not in the modern day. It was a few years
back.
But
it's just hard not to feel outraged at it. But okay, so there was definitely, yeah. Okay, so there were further divisions within the church, whether they want to admit it or not.
Exactly.
Jennifer Wilcott is asking, did you experience, well, I'm paraphrasing, this is my own interpretation of the question. Her question is sexism in the church. My question is, did you see or experience any kind of sexism within the Church of Scientology?
I did not experience it. I understand that it was there. Things that I have read from other people who have told about how it is at the international base. There is the upper echelons that are male get better, or used to get better sleeping quarters than the ones that were female.
I have a question. I've always wondered, how do personal romantic relationships work within the church, and are they planned and prescripted like in many other religions?
No, except in the Sea Org, you cannot have sex outside of marriage. So in order to even, if you're holding hands or looking deeply into somebody's eyes, somebody is very likely to write up a knowledge report on you saying that you are having an illicit 2D, that's what they call the sex dynamic.
Okay.
An illicit sexual 2D relationship with somebody. And you're just holding hands. There's no dating in the Sea Org.
Okay, so that counts as something illicit. Holding hands or looking into someone's eyes, potentially romantically.
Yes.
So that's not allowed.
No. You have to get married. Which explains why there's so many divorces, because in order to just do a basic dating,
yes,
you have to marry the person, and then you find out it's not going to work, so you have to get a divorce.
and how do they approach divorce? Is it allowed freely?
Yes, they do, but it's all handled by, I think, the legal department of the Office of Special Affairs. You're not supposed to have your attention on all of this distracting stuff. So if you say you want to get a divorce, you have to put in the request, and it goes up to the Office of Special Affairs, and then they do all the paperwork, and then you get the word back, okay, you're no longer married.
A related question in a chat room from Jennifer is, what's the reasoning for this abstinence? In different religions such as Christianity, Catholicism, they have certain, strict reasons. What was L. Ron Hubbard's reason?
Well, it all goes back in Scientology to PR.
Okay.
Back in the 70s, there was a lot of this, all of these illicit things going on. And this was before all those rules came out. Before that, the rule that I was just talking about, before that came out, the only rule that I ever heard of was that as long as nobody is getting hurt and it was consenting adults, it was fine.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, somebody got wind of all of this free love type stuff that was going on up there, and it became what they call a PR flap.
Okay.
So there had to be rules made. Yeah. So that's how rules started getting made.
But it
so
seems
that we wouldn't have bad PR.
It seems like it started off pretty freely, and honestly, the religion, Scientology, didn't seem, the way you're explaining it and the way you were introduced to it is nowhere near the image that we are seeing right now of Scientology.
Exactly. When L. Ron Hubbard was the head of the church, there was a certain internal logic to things. He would have a policy that would explain why he was doing things and what the policy was and the reasons for it and all of that. And it would seem to make sense until if you studied it long enough, you would find that it contradicted some other policy. And then that would be one of the things that I would have to go to the Qual Division for. And, and then once I found one too many of these contradictions, I was out of there.
When L. Ron Hubbard died and David Miscavige took over, this changing of the guard seemed to have caused a lot of confusion within the church. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What was so different that it made some people leave, and it was almost like a restructuring? I know that David Miscavige is famously quoted as saying that he ushered in a quote unquote new age of tech.
Well, it was a golden age. That's what he called it.
Or the golden age of tech.
Yeah.
So what were some of the major changes under Miscavige's leadership?
Well, this was years after L. Ron Hubbard died. Just at the point where he died, Miscavige had to do a lot of jockeying for position to solidify his base. And once that was done, then he set about changing things, like the basic definitions of things. One of the things that L. Ron Hubbard said is that you don't change any of the technology. He says, I have done a tremendous amount of research, and I found that it's this way, and so you don't change it. And David Miscavige started changing it. One of the things he changed was the definition. I don't know, this is going to get kind of geeky technically. The definition of a floating needle. A floating needle is one of the indications that you use that it's time to stop the process because the pre-clear is having a win or is about to have a win. And so you just let him have his win and you end the session. Well, David Miscavige changed the definition of a floating needle. So I'm surmising that was so that people would have to stay in the church longer to reach their end phenomena so he could hang on to people more, but the definition of a floating needle, that was basic. And just people who were technically trained and people who were auditors, they just didn't stand for that. That's when a lot of people left.
And I believe that that's when, reading the article, that was one of the things that you told your, I think it was your auditor, correct, that you felt like you had it right the first time because there were all these new changes being made. And that was roughly the time where you exit Scientology, correct?
Yes, I was trying to do my golden age of tech like a good little Scientologist. And part of it was that you had to do these clay table sessions. And I would do my clay table session, and I would, it would be, I'd feel good about it. And then after every session, whether it's clay table or a regular session, you have to go to the examiner, and the examiner will check to see if you have a floating needle. I never had a floating needle because the way they were measuring whether I had a floating needle or not was by this new definition. And so they would just stare at the meter to see if they could get it to look like a floating needle. And by the time they would stare and stare and stare, if I had a floating needle, it would have been gone. So then every time I would go there and not have a floating needle, I would have to get what they would call a review session. Now, in a review session, they go down a list of things that could possibly be wrong. And one of the things that could possibly be wrong was an unnecessary action. I didn't come up with this on my own accord. Unnecessary action is what they got a reaction on the meter. And so I said, oh, yeah, there is an unnecessary action. I think the whole golden age of tech is unnecessary because I think I got it right the first time. And I felt really good about that because, of course, it is an unnecessary action if you want to keep Scientology working. You're supposed to do it the way it was done the first time. So I was just not going to be allowed to have a thought like that.
Wow.
So they had to send me to ethics so I could get my reality adjusted.
We're going to talk about ethics because that it's another thing that I was looking forward to getting into because it's really interesting. But I believe we have a question.
Yes, there was a question from a few minutes ago while we were talking about marriage and marriage before, holding hands. And I believe it was Jennifer Wolcott was wondering, is divorce frowned upon like it is in religions such as Christianity, Catholicism?
No, I don't think it is. Otherwise, they wouldn't be. There's so many divorces going on. They just don't publicize it. It's all a matter of PR. Everything goes back to PR.
Okay.
They just want to keep divorces quiet so that the divorce rate in Scientology doesn't become a PR flap.
Yeah.
Now we're in the age, if I may use the term, we're in the age of miscavige with the Church of Scientology. I was reading in the article that you were put in isolation for 4 months. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was this under the Miscavige leadership?
No, that was L. Ron Hubbard.
Really? And what got you in isolation?
Well, I finally decided that I wanted to leave the Sea Org. This was back, back when I was first on the ship.
Okay.
And then we moved to the land base, and then things got grim, and I said, well, I went to ethics, and I said, I would like to leave. Can you put me on the proper routing form? And he left the room, and he said, wait right here. And when he came back, there were these two large guys, and they said, come with us. And so they escorted me to a room, and they locked me in a room. Well, then way, way later, I find out that there is this policy that says anybody who asks to leave is by definition insane.
Yeah.
And the handling for an insane person is that you give them an introspection rundown. So they locked me up in isolation, which is supposedly part of the rundown. And I had to stay in isolation until my introspection rundown was completed.
What does being in isolation entail exactly? Is it like prison isolation? Are you literally in a room devoid of any kind of well, in prison they call it yard time, but I haven't been to prison, by the way, Lynn. But obviously they're allowed like an hour of yard time, et cetera, et cetera. Was that the type of isolation you were subject to? Were you given a meal, a couple of times a day and not allowed to talk to anybody and stayed in a room for the most of the day?
Well, the thing that is supposed to be happening is that I'm supposed to be decompressing, destimulating, and I'm supposed to not talk to anybody, and nobody's supposed to talk to me so that I can destimulate. And I'm not allowed out of the room. Nobody's allowed to talk to me. And I can't even go out for meals. I have to wait for them to bring food to me. And sometimes, frankly, they would forget.
Oh, my God. Because that was my question. I was like, how often were your meals delivered?
Whenever somebody thought of it.
And I guess they're doing this in the guise of something that's meant to be therapeutic and kind of rid you of certain things and purify you. And
is that the I guess that is the reasoning?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they say it is.
Before the show tonight, I was talking to my parents, and I was telling them, that I was going to interview you, and I was telling them about some of the things that we discussed when we met on Saturday, and they were just telling me, why doesn't the government do anything? How can they get away with this? Lynn, can you answer that question for the people listening at home? And shout out to my parents, by the way. But how can the Church of Scientology get away with what normally would be classified as human rights abuses?
That is a really good question, and I wish I knew the definitive answer. From what I've read of the court cases that are going on, the judges back down because they can't touch a religion because it's a First Amendment. They have the protection of the First Amendment being recognized as a religion and having tax-exempt status from the IRS. So that's how they get away with it. And since the tax exempt status has been granted, it has not been reviewed by the IRS, even though there are all these obvious violations of the rules for what a tax-exempt organization ought to be. And, it's a catch-22. You can't say they're a religion and then prosecute them for human rights violations, because what Scientologists always say is, well, it's a part of our scripture. You know, all of these things are a part of their scripture and it's a part of their beliefs. Well, nobody's arguing with them about their beliefs. They can believe whatever they want to, but they can't do those things that they are doing and without some kind of comeuppance. The chickens are going to come home to roost one of these days, and they don't seem to realize that. They think that their money can buy them out of anything.
Okay.
And I think we have another question in the chat room, and Professor Madness, he says that, he has a certain number of problems. He's diagnosed with major depression, anxiety, and social anxiety, so he's putting himself in a thought experiment.
Like a guinea pig
yes,
of sorts.
He's asking if he were to, I guess, enter a Scientology building and say, I have certain emotional problems. How can Scientology help me? What would a Scientologist say?
One who is trained to get people in will say, Scientology can handle that and come with me. But somebody who is a little bit better trained would say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't help you. They would call him an illegal pre-clear because he had a psych history. That's what they call it. They would say that he has a history of going to psychologists or psychiatrists, and so that they would not be able to help him. Because in the early days, they would have a lot of trouble with psychologists and psychiatrists who would actually call them out on some of their unethical practices because they had messed up some people. They actually back off from that, and they don't take people that they suspect of having been sent there by psychologists to mess up.
Okay, I guess because they've had experience in psychological, psychiatric treatment, and they don't want that tied into Scientology, correct?
That's what they say.
Okay.
What is the problem with Scientology and psychology?
I think it goes back to L. Ron Hubbard and his mental state.
Was he? What kind of person was he? You had a chance to meet him. Were you kind of in that euphoric, state of like, wow, I'm a Scientologist and this is, the man the one guiding us through all of this? Or were you seeing him through a different lens? What was your impression of L. Ron Hubbard? Was he a trouble man? Was he, a happy guy enjoying his time doing this? What was he like?
I was in that still euphoric state, and he did have a charismatic quality about him. He was a good storyteller, and he had a way of, he could be happy when it suited him, and when he had to have put a public face on, he was very impressive. And so that's what I saw of him. And also that was during the time when they were making most of their money by selling actual auditing, and so he wanted to put a nice face on for auditors, and that was what I was.
Obviously a lot of the things that Scientology does, and they can do these things without any oversight is because of the fact that they received, a tax-exempt status as a religious organization. They are recognized as a church. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that period of time in Scientology? We saw in the documentary that David Miscavige put on quite the battle to get Scientology recognized as a religion, and we saw that clip in that same documentary where he turns to this huge portrait of L. Ron Hubbard and salutes him in this very military way and says, like, it's done, or something along those lines.
Done.
What can you tell me about that time in Scientology? It seems like this was something that was ongoing, and that was the reason why L. Ron Hubbard was on this boat, with the Sea Org, trying to avoid all these, tax bills. What was it like? Were you around for that celebration of, wow, Scientology got recognized as a religion by the government?
Yes, I was there. I was at that event.
Oh, really?
Sitting up in the... Yeah, I was there.
Can you tell me a little, can you take us back to that? What was it like?
Well, everybody was very, very happy about it, and he had people had flown in from several different countries, and they had their flags, and they were waving their flags from all of these different countries, and it looked like Scientology was global, and all of these people were, celebrating their tax-exempt status, and oh my God, what a big mistake.
I mean, in a way, and feel free to correct me, but there's obviously a bittersweetness in your tone when we talk about some of the things that you were there for during this time. I know Genevieve had a really good question, and I'll let her ask.
I guess my question was, if it wasn't for David Miscavige's introduction to Scientology, and let's just presume, L. Ron Hubbard were still to be alive today, do you think you'd still be in Scientology and believing what they're saying? And, at its core, do you still feel that Scientology is something good and that, Miscavige simply ruined it?
No, that's no longer my viewpoint. There is, see, if they were actually doing what they say they're doing, it would be good. But they are not doing what they say they're doing. It's something altogether different. Their practice is completely different from what they put on their public face. And so, no, I don't think it is good because they're not actually doing what they say they're doing.
Wow.
So, but I guess I could reword the question and say, if they were doing exactly what Scientology says they're meant to do, would you then be, willing to be part of this organization?
I don't think so. I don't really think they're capable of reform.
Okay.
Even if L. Ron Hubbard were still alive, it would not be. They have too many violations. The people that are supposed to be delivering Scientology have no rights at all. The Sea Org are like slaves.
Yeah.
They have horrible living conditions.
Yeah.
They, I can't believe I was ever a part of that. They're slaves. And they I don't know, they're just asleep. I just wish they would wake up.
Wow. We were talking about earlier about you being in isolation, and obviously in the HBO documentary Going Clear, there's some very, very serious allegations of people being kept in really, really bad conditions and subject to psychological abuse. I mean, that's the only way I can word it, is psychological abuse. And they point to the this big blue building, and you're just a few hundred feet away from it. in the documentary they say that it's in the 7th floor, which I think, to my calculations, is the top floor of this structure. That used to be a hospital back in the day. They bought it, painted it sky blue, and put this very the bright sign on there. Was this where you were kept in isolation?
No, this was at the Flag Land Base in Clearwater.
Okay.
The same place that Lisa McPherson was.
Oh, wow. And with we live in LA. Your salon is located in Hollywood. Why does Scientology have so many extravagant properties? I mean, there's a couple at least on Sunset or on Hollywood Boulevard. There's a Celebrity Center in Hollywood. There's the big blue building on Fountain. Why, Scientology is spending all this money on these huge, huge properties, not just in Southern California, but really worldwide. What is the purpose of these extravagant buildings?
Well, I think they have to show that they are doing things to benefit their people, and putting up places to quote unquote worship is supposedly following their religious mandate. But the fact is that there aren't any people in those buildings. They're just empty shells. There's no real purpose for those buildings except to make a picture, to paint the picture that they're expanding. And when they're actually shrinking, they're saying, oh, we need all these new buildings because we have so many people that want to come and worship here. And it's just the opposite. Their membership is shrinking, and they're putting up the buildings to provide a facade of to make it look like they're expanding.
As we said, obviously you left the church. What year did you leave the church?
The last thing I did was in 2003. That's when I walked out of the ethics office and said, if when somebody comes to handle me, I'll be in my shop.
Yeah.
And nobody ever came.
Yeah.
And, we read on the article that the reason was because they literally had you wait for several hours for somebody to come.
Well, that was not just one occasion. On several occasions, they made you wait for hours and on end, and they had nothing to say to you. So you eventually said, let me know when you want to talk to me. And they never got in touch with you.
Right.
Is that, to the best of your knowledge, is that like a tactic? Or were they like psychologically trying to mess with you, so to speak, by having you sit there for hours and hours? Was it their way of making you feel like you're not that important or something like that?
I think it's partially that. I think it's also that they didn't really know what to say, because what had I done wrong? All I said was I thought that the thing was unnecessary.
Right.
You know? And besides that, most of them knew me. I had cut the hair of most of those people.
Wow.
They used to come to my shop. They were my friends.
Yeah.
So, I think they had a really hard time trying to handle me because they didn't think I was a suppressive person.
And you said, when we were talking, you said that if somebody is declared, I guess is the word, a suppressive person, they're giving the golden rod. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
A goldenrod is the color of the paper that the ethics order comes out on, and then it has the title "Suppressive Person Declare," and then it runs down all of the offenses that this person has done in order to be declared suppressive. Now, in the ethics book, there are several dozen things that you have to do before you get to that step. You have to have hearings, and you have to have committees of evidence, and you have to have all these gradients of ethics before you ever get declared suppressive. And they don't do that anymore. They just up and declare somebody suppressive. They don't have give them a hearing. They don't, they don't go over there. It's just by David Miscavige's whim.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not done by policy anymore. It's just management by whim or hissy fit, or
Right.
if he's having a bad day or a hangover from his scotch or whatever.
If you don't mind, another quick question from the chat room. This general experience has changed your opinion on religion overall, and have you taken up any new ones, new religions and beliefs, or has this experience ruined it all for you?
No, I don't see how you give up your spiritual life if you think that you are basically a spiritual being.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something there. Whether it's going to be organized religion for me or some other thing, I don't know. But if you just sit quietly by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you can, you can get in touch with that kind of flow of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing that's there, and it's with everybody, no matter what religion they have. If it appeals to that part of you, then no, I don't think I'm anti-religious.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm an atheist.
So you have your
I don't
focus. You already have your focus. It's just a matter of maybe directing or interpreting it, but you know what you believe in. That's what I feel.
Actually, I don't know what I believe in.
I feel like you're spiritual. You're in touch with yourself and your beliefs. That's maybe I'm misinterpreting you, but you're such a calm and lovely person. I feel you know what you want,
Well, yeah, I think there is a spiritual existence, and
mm-hmm.
Since I've been away from Scientology, I have gotten more in touch with that. One of the things that I think they do in Scientology is keep you so busy, you don't have time to listen to yourself.
Wow.
And if you do start to listen to yourself, then that's some aberration that they have to run out in session.
Mm-hmm.
So, if people just had a little time to sit and listen to themselves, they would see, that they ought to do something else besides what's going on over there.
I guess that's, in a way, promoting a type of meditation and introspective,
it's definitely a spiritual
journey.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true.
Yeah.
Jennifer Wolcott says, "Thanks for that answer!" ! Lynn, when after you left Scientologist, we talked earlier how your salon is a stone throw away from the big blue building of Scientology. What happened after you left? How did things change for you and your business?
Oh, I lost half of my clientele, a good half of them, because instead of sending me the goldenrod saying I was declared suppressive, I think they did it by whispering campaign, like telling people that I was no longer in good standing and they shouldn't go over there anymore and they shouldn't talk to me, and so they just stopped coming.
Wow. And what are some of the, I know in the article there were mentions of, some, juvenile behavior is the best I can put it.
Yes.
If you could give us examples of the threatening behavior you experience from the more extreme to the more trivial.
Well, I think all of that, whether it's extreme or trivial, has to do with whether you're afraid of them or not. If you're afraid of them, anything they do is going to seem extreme.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you just are not afraid, then anything they do just kind of rolls off of your back. The most recent thing they did last week or so, was when I got to the shop, there was a pile of trash there as if somebody had emptied their wastebasket in front of my door. So, that's the kind of stuff that they're doing right now.
Now, when we had the pleasure to visit you at your shop, you told us that there was obviously they're building there's tons of cameras everywhere, like hitting in trees and what have you. And you told us that they had a camera aimed down the street and they could see, whoever walks into your shop. Do you feel that was done purposely after you left, or was this something that they had in general? I mean, are they just that paranoid of anybody that walks within their vicinity?
I don't know. I don't know when they put that camera up. I just know that it's there. It used to be on one of the posts by that blue building, but now it's up in the trees.
Oh, wow.
So, right now, I think they are making sure that nobody goes in there because they don't want anybody talking to me.
Right.
And one guy who is a paralegal, he does research online, he said that there is an order out that they can't even look in my window because I have that sign there.
Wow.
Wow.
And is it true that the reason, and it seems that you keep your front door locked even during business hours, and you only take, haircuts by appointment, and this is essentially because of Scientologists around you. You have to keep your door locked just because of them.
Yes, because they have come in there and they stole the sign that I used to have in the window. This is actually a replacement sign. They came in and just took it. And they also come in and do things like ask me questions about products, and especially when I'm working on somebody. If I'm working on somebody, I used to be able to count on the fact that somebody was going to come in and ask me a bunch of questions and then say, oh, thank you very much, and then leave without buying anything. And, stuff like that. What am I going to do? You can't call the police for stuff like that.
Right.
Or they would call up and they would make an appointment. Can I come in early Sunday morning? And I'd say, yeah, I'll be here early Sunday morning. And I would go specially for them early Sunday morning. And they would call me up. As soon as I got to the shop and checked my messages, they would say, oh, I'm sorry. I had to pull an all-nighter last night. I can't come. After I had made a special trip.
Oh, my.
Coming in early Sunday morning. Stuff like that.
Just making your life difficult.
Yeah, it's just it's annoying.
Yeah.
It's really annoying, and but you know what?
But like you said, it's not something you can report about, really.
Right. No, but honestly, I am really happy because to me it sounds like you're winning the fight because you're not letting them get to you. One of the things that you said that stuck with me when we met up on Saturday was that, you can't show that you're afraid.
Yeah, because if you're afraid, then you kind of pull that energy in on you. You just can't. It's not good to be afraid. You just have to. I don't worry about what they might do because it's something that might never happen. If something does happen, I'll just deal with it.
And that honestly is very inspiring because I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there that are going through a very similar situation where maybe they want to leave and they can't bring themselves to leave. What would you say to somebody that maybe is thinking about leaving the Church of Scientology?
Everybody has their own situation. And really the only thing you can control is how you react to stuff. Some people can't leave because their kids are in the Sea Org. Some people can't leave because all their family, they'd lose their family. Some people would lose their jobs. They would lose their businesses. They'd lose everything, and they would have to start all over. And some people think they're too old to have to start all over. So I really feel for them. I mean, everybody has to find their own way, and there's no way I can tell somebody who's in that they should get out because nobody could have told me. I just had to figure it out for myself. So
I get you.
Yeah.
What people have to do.
Wow. I mean, and honestly, I want to thank you for your courage to speak out on all of these things. The term activist applies to you, and on your shop, you have signs on the windows directing people to websites and phone numbers. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What are some of the resources out there for somebody that wants to get away from Scientology or learn more about some of the things that go on in Scientology? What are some of the websites and information that you have at your shop?
I have TonyOrtega.org.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Scientology is widely discussed by a very diverse audience. There's Mike Rinder's blog.
Mm-hmm.
There are other blogs, like I think there's one called Back in Calm, which is the South African blog, and it's mostly for people who are still they want to be out of the church, but they still believe in L. Ron Hubbard. So there is a whole spectrum
Mm-hmm.
of, it depends on where you are, which one is going to resonate with you. Right now, I read Mike Rinder's blog and I read Tony Ortega pretty much all the time. When I first came out, I used to post on the ex-Scientologist forum. It's forum-exscn.net. So that's the one that I went to. People who were out way before me would go to zenu.net.
Mm-hmm.
That's the old guard.
Mm-hmm.
There are just lots of places. And then whyweprotest.net is the anonymous site.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gave me the courage to come out. And because I was out from 2003 to 2008 before I ever posted anything on the internet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even look for about 4 years.
Yeah.
Wow. It's funny because when Anonymous came out, I was a bit cynical about him, but honestly, they've done a lot of good, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I retract what I said about Anonymous.
I want to throw in one more quick point in, and this has been mentioned online several times as well. So, L. Ron Hubbard wrote as an introduction that a truly suppressive person or organization, and I quote, has no rights at all. They can be rightly tricked, lied to, or destroyed. And as an example, and maybe you have a comment or two on this, as an example of the danger that Scientology poses, Paulette Cooper, she's a journalist and she was declared a suppressive person. Scientology, or people within Scientology, actually forged a bomb threat written in her name by Scientologists. And this was one of several different plots. One of them was called Operation Freakout, and their aim was to commit Paulette Cooper to a mental institution. And this is how far they are willing to go to destroy someone. And I don't know if you have any comments on that, or maybe stories that you've experienced or heard about yourself, because I mean that's crazy.
Yep, it is crazy. I know that I used to be in the Guardian's office temporarily back in the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
Before Operation Snow White started. And they do those things. They one time had me go down to the IRS building and give out Freedom magazines, and
Mm-hmm.
and they do those things. I never got deeply involved in the spy operation. I think I was too forthright for that. I was just not covert enough.
Yeah.
So they had me do the stuff that they called PR.
Okay, yeah. And did you ever see anyone, people that you worked with or people that were your friends, did you ever see anyone that felt guilty about what they were doing? In the realization that maybe it's not right?
No.
Everyone believed strongly in what they were doing.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Lynn, we're pretty much out of time, but why don't you tell people where they can find you? What's your website?
Oh, it's sheerperfection.com/blog, which is where the most recent stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
The older site is still up, but I haven't put anything on it recently.
By the way, and I am a happy customer. If you're in the LA area, definitely, go to Lynn, visit her. She has a great shop. She's an excellent hairstylist. Honestly, one of the nicest, most warm people I've ever met. And just reading the comments in the chat room, she's so courageous and inspiring. She's awesome. Thank you for her honesty. I mean,
great spirit.
Yeah.
Lots of quotations from this chat.
Yeah. So, Lynn, you're an amazing person, a wonderful person, and definitely check out her website, Sheer Perfection. She will cater to your hairstyling needs, and believe me, I have really awful hair, right, Genevieve? I got like the worst hair in the world.
It grows in all directions.
It literally does. And Lynn managed to tame it. So if you wanna, if you're in the LA area, stop by, get a cut, have a nice chat with Lynn. She's an amazing person, and I have no words to express how thankful I am for having you on the show and taking the time to tell us about all of these things, Lynn. Hopefully, it's not the last time that we get to talk to you.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm
Thank
glad,
you.
and have a great night. And I will let you know when we post the show, and feel free to share with your friends, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Have a great night.
Good night, Lynn. Thank you.
You too. Good night, Genevieve.
Bye-bye. Wow. Genevieve, why don't you give me some final thoughts here?
You know, I'm a sucker for like really nice people. You know, I'm always just like, oh, I need to meet like genuinely nice people. I'm always like so like smitten because you don't meet like just outright friendly
Right.
people in your day-to-day life. And she's genuine, she's honest, and you ask her a question, she'll answer it.
Yeah.
She won't beat around the bush. She won't. None of that. None of that. You ask her, she answers, and she's honest and she's nice, and that's all there is to her.
And honestly, it's a very insightful interview, and I hope the people listening enjoyed it. And if you missed it, if you missed, any part of this interview, we'll be posting it on our website, WoTRradio.com.
Mm-hmm.
So check out the website in the next day or two. We're also going to have the interview we did earlier today with astronaut
Musgrave.
Dr. Story Musgrave, which was mind-blowingly fascinating. We talked to him about space travel, UFOs, NASA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you name it. We covered a lot. So if you missed it, definitely check it out. It was a very exciting day here for us at West of the Rockies. I mean, I'm elated with everything, and I'm happy to have people listening to us. So I thank you.
Thanks for people listening, and honesty in particular, Jennifer Wilcott and Professor Madness for pretty much asking half the questions for us.
Pretty much. I mean, they were excellent questions. And also shout out to the
Ethics
Twitter
of
account
Freedom.
at Ethics of Freedom. They asked us to share with our followers the petition to revoke Scientology's tax-exempt status, and you bet we're gonna sign this thing.
Just Google it. It's on petitions.whitehouse.gov.
Yeah.
But either way, just Google the revoke Scientologist tax exemption.
Yeah. So also check out our Twitter if you missed the link at WOTR Radio. We retweeted the link to that. I want to thank the person handling this account, Ethics of Freedom, for sending us that link and some other interesting links. We really appreciate your support. And again, thanks to Lynn. She was amazing. And we're going to be posting some pictures that we took while we were with Lynn, along with this podcast on our website. As always, I'm Engineering Frank on Twitter. West of the Rockies on Facebook, Genevieve Uway on Twitter. Thank you all for sticking around. It's been amazing. Anyways, take care, be safe, God bless, don't do anything too crazy. Check out our website, WoTRradio.com. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/West of the Rockies. And give us a follow, WOTR Radio on Twitter. Thanks again to Lynn Campbell. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you, Frank.
Enjoy this jam. It'll put you in the mood to go to bed, I hope. If not, it'll put you in the mood to dance, which is equally as good. Here we go.
Independent FM.
New York,
London,
Philadelphia, Japan,
Chicago, Paris,
San Francisco,
Tijuana, Los Angeles, California.
The Independent FM, Indie Radio, live from Swing Out Studios in Hollywood. This is the all-new Independent FM.